Thanks very much, David. I'll be brief. If many of you are old with the World Affairs Council as I am, you'll remember that prior to the pandemic, we had a regular tradition of recognizing and celebrating National Women's Day, particularly led often by Lynn Brown, another former president. So today, we're happy to renew and restore that tradition by celebrating International Women's Day, which was actually yesterday, but we didn't make it because of scheduling problems with the legislature. Not surprising, huh? We're very happy to renew the celebration of International Women's Day with today's speaker, Johanny Cepeda-Freytiz, who's, come on up, Johanny. Johanny is our newest representative at the Latin representative of Berks County at the General Assembly. She joins the largest contingent of women ever in the Pennsylvania General Assembly. Johanny has got an awful lot of good stuff to share with us. She came to us from New York. She opened her own business, Mi Casa Su Casa, a restaurant near, just by the peanut bar for everyone. And from there, she went on working with the business community to get on to the City of Reading City Council. She was elected president of the City Council. Subsequently, then was elected to the House of Representatives. As I said, the first Latin woman from Berks County in the General Assembly. Without further ado, Johanny.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David, for inviting me. Thank you to World Affairs Council. At some point I thought it was World Global Affairs, but it's World Affairs Council. And I think the last time that I was with this group was, I think in 2016, where I catered a breakfast, right? Yeah, and I think Giovanni Bedoya, Giovanni, not Johanny, was the guest speaker then. But good afternoon. My name is Johanny Cepeda-Freytiz. It's an honor to be here with you all today. And while today is not March 8th, we can celebrate Women's International Day every day, right? Because we have lots to be grateful for, lots to celebrate. And on that note, I want to wish all the women happy Women's Month, right? Women's Her Story Month. And bear with me, please. So I have to admit, this is my very first PowerPoint presentation, so I hope I get some feedback at the end. I take criticism, I take input, so bear with me. Okay, and once again, good afternoon and saludos, porque también soy bilingüe, so today we're gonna learn a little bit of Spanish. And we're gonna start with buenas tardes. Muy bien, muy bien. Okay, so who am I? Obviously, I'm newly elected to the state legislature, oh my gosh, the 129th Legislative District. And what areas does that cover? Because some of you may not know or may not be aware, but it's parts of Reading, the northwest part of Reading. It is all of West Reading, all of Wyomissing, all of Sinking Spring, and parts of Spring Township. And, and a little bit about me so that we're not strangers. Chris, do you recognize this woman? Right? So, to talk about Women's International Day, I have to pay homage, to the woman who created me, right? I obviously didn't do it alone, but this is my mother, Anna, and she is my rock. She's taught me how to be independent, a go-getter. I remember early on her, as she was raising me, she said I always had to get 100 or more every grade. She always stressed that knowledge is power. And she always said education is key. She says, because the day you get married, you kick him out. He doesn't kick you out. Now again, understand, yes, it's okay, you can clap, ladies. My mom is the youngest of 14 kids. Exactly. And when she came into the United States, she was about 18 years old, and she refused to be a housewife or a house mom. And no offense, because I wish I could have been a stay-at-home mom. But she refused because of what she experienced, with her siblings, right? So she went and got herself her GED, studied English, became a citizen. So I'm so proud of my mom, and I couldn't be here if it wasn't for her and what she instilled in me. And obviously, she didn't create me alone, right? So my dad, Luis, he is also my rock. He's my superstar. My dad instilled in me a lot of hard work and dedication. He was a laborer. He worked with his hands. But he always said to me, querer es poder. Repeat after me. Querer es poder. And what that means is that when there's a will, there's a way, right? So, and everything that you do in life, you do it with a lot of love and a lot of passion. And here's the reason why Mi Casa Su Casa exists today. Allow me to also introduce my husband, Felix, who currently works for the city of Reading as the chief of staff to Mayor Eddie Moran. Yes, it's okay, you can clap for him too. I met Felix a few years ago. We'll be celebrating on March 12th, actually, 8 years that we started dating. And sometime in July 20th, we'll be celebrating 7 years of marriage. And with him, I learned about taking care of people. He was union president at the time, working for the city. He represented ASME. And he was always about employee rights and fighting for equal rights, equal pay, and always advocating. So obviously, we got along just great because I'm all about community, empowering, and advocating for our community. Yes, you can clap, that's okay. Now, because we are celebrating Women's Month and International Women's Day, I come from a matriarch. We have so many powerful, strong women in my family. And here, this is a picture of some years ago where my daughter is somewhere in there as well. She's the youngest of the crew, but my mom is at the head of the table. I have 3 of my aunts sitting there, and a lot of my beautiful cousins, all who are independent women, giving back to the community. Amongst them, there's a lieutenant. Yeah, she's like she was the first Dominican, the first Latina to be a police officer in the city of Reading. And now she has the title of lieutenant. She's earned that. Yes. So going back to my childhood years, right? So when I turned 9 years old, my mom shipped me to the Dominican Republic. She always called those adolescent years, the tricky years where, an adolescent can get lost, could take the wrong path. So she sent me to the Dominican Republic, where I grew up with Josefina and Lucio, the twins, Alba, and having that experience in the Dominican Republic as a child, I was there from 5th grade to 9th grade. And, we went to school half a day, so very different from how school takes place here in the United States. But also, I grew up where sometimes, first there were limited TV channels, some things that young people today take for granted. And sometimes the electricity would go. And it wasn't a big deal. We would just go outside and play. And there were times that we had limited water, right? Again, things that we take for granted. But I was able to have that experience that oftentimes I wish I could expose my kids to, because they'd have a greater appreciation for their environment, for water, for energy, and things of the sort. Okay, now I know in my, when I was trying to prepare for this presentation and in speaking with David, he's like, share about how you got to Reading. Because David did mention that I worked in New York City. So when I did work in New York City, I actually ran a community center, right? And I have to say that as I was preparing this PowerPoint and looking through pictures and images, I found this theme of who I've always been surrounded by. And I've been surrounded by a lot of women who have inspired me. But I've also learned that my true vocation is to serve people, is to serve my community. In New York City, I grew this love and this passion for working with children and youth while I ran this community center and instilling in them the power that they possess. And I see we have a lot of students in the building, a lot of young people. Give yourselves a round of applause. Yes. As a young person and just my experience working with a lot of youth, you know, you have so much power and you have so many opportunities. Just make sure that you take advantage and that you reach and that you maximize on the potential that each and every one of you possesses. I know sometimes growing up, you know, it's hard. There's a lot of peer pressure. You know, as young women, there's a lot of self-doubt, lack of securities, right? Lack of confidence. But just know that you're beautiful beings. You have the power, and you could do whatever you set your mind to do, right? I often say this to my own kids. Only you can become your own obstacle. So get you out of the way and focus on what you want and strive, and you will achieve it. So I just wanted to share that with the young people, because to me that was always working in neighborhoods where, well, the community center was housed where young people were labeled at risk. And that's where I learned to always have a strength-based approach. They're not at risk, they're at potential. Everyone is at potential. Right? So, you want to change your mindset. Right? Querer es poder. And do everything with love, but also mindset. No one's at risk. We are at potential. Too often we focus on the negative, right? Like even in our world today, too often times we focus on our differences. No, let's embrace our similarities because we have so many. But we waste so much time fighting, yes, about what separates us versus what unites us. And, you know, I'll share a little bit of that experience, you know, now in this new role and capacity at the state level. Okay, my why. Almost forgot. My babies. Why did I come to the city of Reading? And again, for those that don't know, I do have a Master of Science in Education. So the routes that I chose in life, the career paths, they were my choice. But why? And I want to stress this to the youth. Because I had options. Why? Because I chose to get a career. I chose to go to school. I got a bachelor's. I majored in French. You know, and these days, yes, it's okay, you can laugh because I didn't do anything with it. I can defend myself, I'm carrying, yes, thank you. However, I had the experience, I studied abroad in Paris. I got to explore other cultures. And I also minored in Spanish because obviously, you know, I spoke the language. Now, nowadays, we know the cost of education, right, is very high. So I encourage you, you know, start exploring your paths now so that you have a better sense of what you'd like to pursue. But never let anything get in your way of still trying and exploring. So yes, I majored in French. However, I did my master's in guidance counseling. So I have the Master's of Science in Education because to me, again, it was important to instill in young people their power. And that I would always be there as a guide, as a resource, right? And to help them, give them the tools, not do things for them, but empower them with the tools so that they can have a successful life. I do the same thing with my kids. Like, I am not giving you the answer. I oftentimes, Mom, how do you spell this? Well, let's sound it out. I used to be like a teacher, no, let's try it, because I never wanted my kids to not try. Or not thrive to achieve. So, why did I come to the city of Reading? Because my babies were really young, and when I worked in New York City, I had 2 jobs. I've always been this workaholic. And again, because I've always loved the work that I've engaged in, I never really called it work, it was just life, right? So I ran a community center in a school building where I was also a guidance counselor, part-time, and I focused on college and career with our young people. And so what did that mean? I was in the school building at 8 a.m. and I didn't leave the school building until like 9 p.m. So I would leave my babies sleeping and find them sleeping, only being able to spend time with them on weekends. You know, yes, it was heartbreaking. You know, I knew I was doing a sacrifice because I was working with other people's children, which I love. And to this day, I still have a relationship with all those young people I worked with in New York City. Thank God for social media, because that's how we stay connected. But I needed a change. Now, there's my sister. My parents, I didn't share with you that when I graduated high school, my mom chose to move to Reading, right? Because Reading is where her pursuit of the American dream became a reality, home ownership. And so you remember I shared with you at 9, she shipped me to DR. Well, she had my sister. My sister, I'm 9 years older than my sister. So when my sister was going into middle school, it was time for a change. So Mom picked up and moved to Reading. So I've never been a stranger to Reading. I always visited. So I knew that when I had my own kids, I would come back because I wanted a better quality of life. And I wanted to unlike my mom, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but you know, I couldn't afford to do so. And so, that is when Mi Casa Su Casa came to be. That's when Mi Casa Su Casa was born. We opened Mi Casa Su Casa in 2007 because I wanted a space where I could bring my kids to work. And still, I didn't make the same amount of money, but still, it was spending time with my kids and being there was priceless. You couldn't compare. So yes, I took a major pay cut, but I pursued something different, right? Because I didn't know anything about restaurant other than I loved to eat. However, my dad was an excellent cook, better than my mom. Chris, please don't tell my mother I said that, because she swears she taught him everything he knows. But that's not true. What was that? Right, exactly. Yeah, we can say yes. We'll say that. So, my dad, you know, I'm his baby, right? Well, I'm the oldest, but my dad and I were like this. I always used to say that my dad was also the nurturer. He spoiled me with love, whereas my mom gave me tough love, right? So my dad would be the type that when my mom cooked something that I didn't like, he would like sneak and go ahead and make me something to eat so that I would eat. Yes. I would get away with anything with my dad. Oh gosh. So Mi Casa Su Casa was born in 2007. It's a family business. And I show you here my cousins, the twins. They were in the other picture because they owned this business at 320 Penn Street. It wasn't Mi Casa Su Casa. It was called Cafe de Gemellis. And then we transitioned. I purchased it from them. It was an opportunity, again, to have a job and bring my kids to work. And I have to say, we're gonna be 16 this October. The years that I've spent at Mi Casa Su Casa has been filled with so much love, joy, tears. Yes, I've cried a lot. I've been through devastations because we've had the economy tanked in 2008. Then we had the pandemic recently. So been through some really challenges. But at the root of it all, it was the best support system was my family and love. You know, my dad would always say, mi hija, querer es poder. When there's a will, there's a way. We got you, we got this, we'll figure it out, we'll get through this together. And obviously there's a picture of my mom. My dad, I guess I cut him out by accident. But one of the things I know, my poor dad. One of the things that I wanted to share about my dad, and you'll hear me talk a little bit more about this later on, you know, and maybe I'll just wait to speak about it later on. Unfortunately, he's just not here with us anymore. I did lose him this summer on July 2nd. But I'll share a little bit more later because I don't want to get choked up. I'm going to try to stick to my script here and my PowerPoint. All right, so what has Mi Casa Su Casa meant for me and for others and for everyone who comes in? You know, it's been a place where there's community. You know, I have images here. This was so many years ago, I think before there was virtual learning. This is the Soto family. Now, these kids are like in their teens, 20s, but Mi Casa Su Casa has been a space where anyone from any walk of life can come in and feel comfortable, can feel safe. I always say we specialize in comida latina. We know what comida is, right? Yes? What is comida? Gracias. We specialize in comfort, conversation, and creative arts. And really, it's been a community building, community bonding space. We have a number of events. You know, I don't know if you see some familiar faces like former President Anna Wise from RAC. We've had mixers with Giovanni Bedoya. We've had Centro Hispano lunches. It's just been that space that just welcomes everyone, and we create those opportunities for people to just connect. We've also had, wow, this picture didn't come out too nice, but we've had the Reading Theater Project. We've had the Reading High School JROTC, the Firefighters Youth Academy, and it's just been this space where we've also had open mic nights. You know, one of the things that I learned about Reading early on when I came in here, that too many times, no offense to the Reading Eagle, but please don't write anything negative about me, okay? No. But too many times, you know, you'd read the cover would always stress and highlight crime. Please don't believe the hype. Crime is everywhere, but oftentimes it would be stressed in the city of Reading. And one of the things that I learned by working at Mi Casa Su Casa and getting to know people, gosh, there was so many treasures. That's why I quickly said, Reading isn't at risk, Reading is at potential. And I opened up our doors to create a space for talent, for people to express themselves, for people to just share their talents, whether it was rapping, singing, reciting poetry, playing the harmonica. I don't know if you know who this guy is, Craig Zuri. Oftentimes, our open mic nights would conclude with what we would call like a synergy cipher. Someone would start harmonizing, somebody would jump in with a word, somebody would play an instrument, somebody would sing, and it was just this beautiful, just like exchange of talent. No judgment zone. Everybody just connected via art, via music, right? And I'm like, wow, this is what our city of Reading really looks like. Why aren't we hearing about that? So, in my pursuit of my own American dream with my business, we also participate in a lot of festivals at Mi Casa Su Casa, whether it was Downtown Alive, downtown concerts. You know, we've also expanded into West Reading for Fall Festival, Arts Festival, even to Jim Dietrich Park for their River Fest. So we've tried to get around as much as possible because too many times people would be afraid to come to the city of Reading. So I had to expand. And at some point, got really close at opening up a location in West Reading just because I wanted to reach people. But then I realized, I'm like, wait a minute. Reading is at potential. We're at potential. I just got to get people across the bridge. Give us a shot. So if I got to them where they felt comfortable and tried the food, it's a way of me hooking them and then they'd come visit. And I'd always say, I have parking. You don't have to worry. You can come in the back door. But you know, I just wanted to break that ice, right? Because Reading deserves a chance. It's not everything negative that you read about. Thank you. Yeah, somebody's clapping. Thank you. We also expanded our business into catering. And then eventually we started a cooking school. We call it Mi Cocina School. And oh my gosh, we have on the far right, or that would be your left, they're making empanadas. That's my son, because you know, everybody at Mi Casa Su Casa has to earn their keep, even the children. So I would hook them like, yeah, you're learning. I think she was baking a cake, my daughter. And then we also expanded into the farmer's market, the Shillington Farmer's Market, where I personally taught how to make tostones, fried plantains, and sweet plantains. So I was able to teach at the Shillington Farmer's Market as well. And then we also had cooking I turned my back room into this cooking environment, even for children. We were teaching them how to bake. And this was the cooking team. And what we did was, and let me see if I remember the mission of the cooking school. It was about connecting community through the art of culinary arts. We wanted to travel through to explore cultures and do that through food. So every month we had a theme. One month we went to Cuba, but again, it was through food. We would feature, I think Havana Joe worked with us. I don't know if you're familiar with Chef Havana Joe, but he taught a class one time. Then we went to Venezuela, and I remember the chef was self-made chef, a DJ Chamoquin, who is actually a DJ for Rumba. At some point we went to Mexico, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, but the point was bringing people together to explore culture, to engage in conversation. To me, it's so important to connect people. Because like I said from the beginning, it's about embracing our similarities, celebrating one another, regardless of where we come from. And as I mentioned, we also did catering. There's some images there. You see my husband over here as well. Okay, and also, Mi Casa Su Casa, in these past 16 years, we've had so many VIPs come through our door. We even had visitors from Germany come and visit us and have meal. Superintendent, even our former governor, Tom Wolf, and Mr. Kuhn, I don't know if you remember, but you hired Mi Casa Su Casa one time for a fundraiser for Governor Wolf when he was in the running. He actually came to visit us at Mi Casa Su Casa. And I'm sure you're probably wondering, why is she sharing all these pictures with us? You know, I'm trying to get to the point where how I was inspired to run for office, because I kid you not, I hated politics, and the word being called a politician made me cringe. I'm still trying to get used to that word, just because of the negativity that's associated with being in politics and being a politician. But living in the city of Reading, having a business in the city of Reading, taught me the role that politics plays in our community. And I'm showing you more VIPs, right? Do you all remember former Senator Michael Pake? So of course, I had the honor of meeting this man. He came to me casa su casa. So I've been blessed to meet so many different people from different walks of life, and I thought I'd share that with you. And obviously we have Congresswoman Houlihan and our current governor, Josh Shapiro. He came out during his campaign trail, got to dance with us a little bit right on the sidewalk in front of me, casa su casa. So we've had some good times. Okay, so why did I get into politics? I shared a little bit. To me, it's important for people's voices to be heard, for people's voices to be acknowledged, and for every elected person to make a decision based on people's input. So as a small business in Reading, and you saw the many people that walked through my establishment, particularly city council, right? Because people don't understand the importance of local government and how they directly impact your pockets, your way of life. And so, oftentimes they would make decisions and I'm like, Jesus Christ, Mayor, like you came to get a sandwich, you couldn't ask me what I thought about this, right? Because let's be real, we're so caught up in our day-to-day that we don't make time to listen to meetings, to read minutes, anything of the sort. But do your best to connect with your community. At least that was my mindset. And so in 2015, I said, you know what, I've had enough of this. I remember, I think the icing on the cake for me was my health permit went up from $160 to $270, and I'm like, huh? Without a justification, like credit cards send you stuff in the mail warning you, right, that your interest rate is gonna be higher. You couldn't have the decency to just like at least notify me. So anywho, a lot of the frustrations, and then speaking to my colleagues, having gone through just the economic turmoils and challenges, I said, no, somebody has to speak up, and I'm gonna go for it. Because a lot of my neighbors, a lot of businesses in the city of Reading, for the most part, speak a lot more Spanish than English. So me, who dominates both languages, I ask myself, gosh, if I'm struggling, I wonder how they're doing. So that is what inspired me to run for office. Now, in 2015, I didn't win. I was short 75 votes. That's okay, but it was an experience. You know, I'm one that I don't always follow the script. I don't. You know, I'm learning, right? Because you have to find that medium ground. And I remember in 2015, oh, there's a super voters list, and this is what you do. And I'm like, you know, and stay away from the South Side, because they don't vote. They don't care. But I did the opposite. I said, well, no, those are the ones that I want to enfranchise. Those are the ones that I need to understand why they don't vote. I won in the South Side because when I knocked on a door, or when I was getting my signatures, I was registering people to vote. In fact, Mi Casa Su Casa has been that place for civic engagement, because we ran voter registration drive since I opened my doors in 2007. In fact, the first Obama campaign, Mi Casa Su Casa was a volunteer site. We had people coming from all over to volunteer for his campaign, and I remember my back room then was like a phone banking. Everybody came into phone banking. So my point is that I've always been very vested in my community, very engaged, because I want to uplift, empower, and help people realize the power that they possess, right? Because we're nothing without people. It takes each one of us to work with each other to be able to make improvements in our day-to-day, right? I'm elected because you elected me, right? So you are my bosses. You give me the marching orders. I'm just a seat at the table, your seat at the table. And I like to stress that to people. At least that's the type of politician that I am. And so, however, in 2019, so in a quick story, because I don't want to bore you. That's why this PowerPoint, because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fall asleep on me. In 2015, as I mentioned, while I lost, I had victory in the South Side. However, some things happened that changed. I lost the primary, but then in the general election, there was an opportunity. So I lost to former council president Jeff Waltman, may his soul rest in peace. And I remember that he then was on the ballot twice for president and city council for District 6. And I wasn't having it. I'm like, that's not democratic. How can you hold 2 seats? You should give one up. But he wasn't hearing it. So what did I do? I said, I'm going to do a write-in campaign. I knew I was going to lose. I knew the position eventually would go to an appointment. My purpose was to give the people back the power. That's ultimately what I want to do. I ran the primary, I got X amount of votes, I'm going to do a write-in, because at the end of the day, I need to prove to the body of council that people's voices need to be heard and need to be considered. But if you all followed what happened in 2015, that really didn't get me anywhere. I did the write-in, I knew I would lose, but I broke history. I got 117 write-ins, so I was pretty proud of that. Then it went to appointment, I applied, I couldn't get selected. And I remember like yesterday, I remember having council chambers packed with people. We were there to demand answers. I'm like, how can I, a woman who's educated, bilingual, bicultural, with a master's degree, with a business in town, understand the needs of my community, how did I get overlooked? Ran a campaign, did a write-in. I remember I did videos in English, in Spanish. I had blow-ups with instructions at every site, with pens. This is how you do a write-in. But I didn't get selected. So that left a bittersweet taste in my mouth, because I'm like, well, what is it? I said, is it the color of my skin? Is it that I have a big mouth? You're scared, you're threatened, because I'm going to call you out and I'm going to demand accountability. So the make of city council didn't reflect the community. And listen, no offense to them, because to serve, I commend everyone who steps up to the place to serve, because that is a sacrifice. But I was denied a chance after people voted, right? So in my mind, I'm like, this is why people don't vote. You're not giving the power to the people. Nonetheless, fast forward 2019, unfortunately, Councilman from District 6, John Slifko, passed away, and an opportunity presented itself. From 2015 to 2018, I said, the hell with politics. I'm gonna focus on people. I'm gonna manage what happens in my walls at Mi Casa Su Casa. That's how I will build community. But in 2019, unfortunately, Mr. Slifko passed away, and an opportunity presented itself. And I kid you not, I waited till the day before to submit my application, because I still had this resentment. Because and I don't know how you can relate to what I'm saying. Because never in my life, coming from New York City where it's a melting pot, coming to the city of Reading where the majority of the population looked like me, and for city council to deny me the opportunity to serve, right? Like I had to fight to just serve. What I was already doing genuinely, organically, that did something to my soul and to my being. And it was hard. From 2015 to 2019, it was 4 years of self-therapy, right? Like, am I not good enough? It was hard. But I said, you know what? I'm also a woman of faith. I don't go to church, but I just pray to God. And God was like, you better finish what you started. You better get over this and push forward. You better pursue and persevere. And I applied and I got it. And of course, that picture right there is the swearing in. The room was full, because to me, it was about, again, connecting people, giving people a seat at the table. And everybody in that room, everybody was touching one another. If you can see here, somebody has their head over his shoulder. It was important for us to all be connected. To me, that was symbolic of what I stand for and what I'm about, and how I carry not only my life, but my responsibilities. Then I ran and got elected in 2020. So this is my official swearing in with my family. My dad unfortunately got cut out. I didn't even notice that as I was doing these slides. But I was happy that he was able to witness and experience that. And then, unfortunately, in 2022, May, I forget the date, because it was a rough year. Let me backtrack a little bit. That summer of, actually in 2021, that summer of 2021, my dad had already been retired, by the way. He left to live his best life ever in the Dominican Republic and would just come to visit. He left in 2019. However, in 2021, people are telling me, oh, your dad's losing weight, he's not looking good. And I'm like, oh. Well, one of his neighbors calls me. Anyway, I sent for him, brought him back. The same day he got off the plane, I was like, Dad, you hungry? Let's get you some food, and then we're going to emergency, because I didn't like what I saw. He just wasn't the man that left on his last visit. So unfortunately, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And yes, and I rearranged my life, because he was my person. I don't want to cry, but he was my person. And for so many years, he was my rock. It was my turn to be his rock. I rearranged my life, and I was his caretaker. I was responsible. I was like, nope, if I have to shut down the business, take care of that. If the kids got to figure out what they're going to eat, they're on their own, I got to take care of that. Dad was number one for me. Then the opportunity presents itself to run for this position for the 129th. There was redistricting, and I wasn't going to do it. There was members of the community, come on, you have to do it. Representation matters. Representation matters. And then I felt compelled. I had the conversation with my dad, because he knew he was my number one, and he said, mija, querer es poder. When there's a will, there's a way. I'm old, I got you. He was there for when I announced. He was there when I won the primaries. He got to witness that. Unfortunately, I did lose him on July 2nd. So he wasn't there to see me win the general, but I know he's proud, and I carry his last name with pride, and what he instilled in me, I carry it every day. And so, fast forward to January 3rd, I go sworn in. I'm your new representative for the 129th Legislative District. And I know my time is limited. I just got so I'm gonna try to make this quick. I'm going to go through these slides quick. I just want you to read this. As I mentioned to you when I opened up, I was looking through my pictures. Who am I always surrounded by? Who pushes me? Who motivates me? So behind every successful woman is a tribe of other successful women who have her back. I have images here. I went to here we go. All right, so I went to an all-girls Catholic school. So when I came back from DR, my mom was entrusting of the environment. So, I had a sisterhood that I built in high school. So that's a picture of our high school reunion with some of the women that impacted my life back in high school. I'm gonna go over here. This is a picture of my sisters from college. So I went to SUNY Newport, and I was a Sigma Dove. So I had one Greek letter, but these were my, the women that I bonded and built with. Right? Then my first event at the Pennsylvania Federation of Democratic Women. Here I am, and of course I always take my little girl. I would always take my kids everywhere, but especially my daughter. So she's a baby now. This little girl is now 19, attending George Washington University in pursuit of pre-law. Yes, let's give it up for Miss Independent. And then in this picture, this was in 2021 November. Linda Holscale from the Berks Democratic Women presented me with recognition at the Pennsylvania Federation of Democratic Women. And in here, I got to speak. But not only did I got to speak, I got to hear our new speaker, Johanny McClinton, speak. Back then, she was leader of the Democratic Caucus. And I remember listening to her, and I took pictures. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's a powerhouse. And I remember her saying then that her goal was to be Speaker of the House. I'm gonna click through these fast. I'm sorry, yes, that's Joe Biden. I think during Obama's campaign. I'm gonna just show you some quick images, because then I wanna get to my point before I get pulled away with a cane. Obviously, my sisters from council. Here's another community group. Together we are stronger. Obviously, this is way back when we were doing voter registration drive, and I was honored to be invited to attend this event. I think back here you see my cousin, my sister, my daughter, some young ladies who were Girl Scouts, because I was also very involved with the Girl Scouts because of my daughter. Oops. Go back. Just some other images. Here is Johanny McClinton. This is the women's rally that we had. And we had some pretty powerful women come down. Even from New York, Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez came to speak at my rally, at my women's rally. I had a lot of powerhouses here at this event. Obviously, you know, El Canal 69, right? Because we're representing the ladies in Spanish as well. So, as your new state representative, I was able to celebrate Dominican Independence Day. And that was December 27th. This just happened. And for me, it was such an emotional day because it was like conclusion, it was like I did that for my dad. My dad never got to go to the Capitol, but he was so patriotic of his country. And I was so honored and privileged that in the United States of America, we were able to celebrate the contributions of the Dominican community and wave our red, white, and blue flag, just like the American flag. And not only was I able to speak, but also in my dad's native tongue. So for that, I was so grateful. We've come so far as women international women, excuse me. So you see the colorful brightness at the Capitol steps. So I'm going to fast forward really quick. Then, not only did I get to hear Johanny McClinton prophesize, I guess, because she spoke about what she wanted to achieve back in November of 2021. Back then, I had no idea I was ever going to run for this seat. And on February 28th, I was there not only to witness the first woman Speaker of the House, but to cast my vote for her to get elected to be the first woman Speaker of the House. Isn't that like amazing? Yes, women, we've come so far, and there's so much more work to do. And on that note, these are all the women, part of the Democratic Caucus. Women make up 51% of PA's population. However, only 35% of its elected officials. Women of color are 12% of PA's population, but only 2%, that's a typo, 2% of its population are office holders. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here, for patiently listening to me. I hope I didn't put you to sleep. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for having supported my business. And we got more work to do. So young people, get ready, because we're investing in you. You're the future leaders. In fact, you're the current leaders. So you better step up to the plate, roll up your sleeves, and let's get to work, because we got so much more to do. Thank you so much.
So, Johanny, you're not done. Now it's time for Q&A. Do we have any questions for the representative?
Quick question for you. Given the recent Supreme Court decision, what do you think is going to happen in terms of making state funding of education more equitable? If you were a betting woman, how does that end?
So I'm not sure if you listened to Shapiro's proposed budget. There's definitely going to be more funding. There is more funding being allocated. However, we will be working on the budget come June. We have an appropriations committee that will be having hearings in the next couple of weeks. But personally, from looking at the numbers, I think we need more funding to make our education system equitable. So it's a work in progress, but we are hopeful because he presented us with a very great start in comparison to what we had to deal with past years. I hope that answers your question, but stay tuned because more on that will come.
Other questions? Rodney?
A somewhat related question. What's your thought on the property tax reform?
I'm very much in favor. It's funny because I just put in a request. I wanted to start with some of our most vulnerable population, the elderly, and also our disabled veterans. So I've been putting in requests to look up of past bills or bills that we can put out there that at least will consider property reduction that's equivalent to what they earn. Or if a veteran is 50% disabled, that maybe their property tax can be reduced to 50%. So again, working on that as well. And by the way, I didn't mention to you my committee assignments, because we just got assigned committees. So I will be serving on commerce, finance, gaming oversight, and tourism, recreation, and economic development. So I'm super excited and looking forward to just continue to work, not only for my district and my community, but obviously for the entire Commonwealth.
Okay, we have a question over here.
Yeah, quick question about your Latino influence. I was wondering how you had a chance to meet AOC, the big movement with the progressives in office, and is that something that you see in the future of having, like you said, women of color like yourself, AOC, coming to limelight in recent years?
I look forward to meeting her. I haven't had that pleasure as of yet, but in the works as well. I look forward to that. Thank you for the question.
I think there was a question over here. Was there a question
The young
over here?
lady, she had oh, I'm sorry. There's a student there. who had a question.
There we go.
For young women in the community, what advice do you have for like making a community for yourself? Like in this area, when you want to advocate for yourself, what advice do you have?
It's a great question. So I would say you have a lot of resources at your disposal, right? So find someone that you're comfortable with speaking with. At school, you have your guidance counselor, you have your teachers, you know, your mom or your parent or your grandma or a relative, and sometimes your neighbor. And community starts from home, right? First connecting to who lives next to you, because I think we've gotten disconnected about what community means and who our neighbors are and how strong we can really build our neighborhood. And if not, you know, always seeking a mentor. I have business cards and I have brochures. You can always call me. And I may not get back to you right away, but I will get back to you. And also, you have a wealth of resources right in this room. So just connect. Remember, as I mentioned before, you and only you can be your own obstacle. So if you don't ask, you won't know, right? So make sure you tap somebody and say, hey, I need you. Can you help me? Okay?
Johanny, I know that you're new to Harrisburg. You've only been there a couple of months, but I was wondering if you could give us like an overview, if you can, of what's going on in Harrisburg to protect women's rights to health care and to legal abortion.
Great question. So the Democrats, we're the majority right now. We haven't been the majority in the past 12 years. So we are at an advantage to make sure that we're going to protect women's health, women's reproductive rights. However, unfortunately, right, the Senate, the makeup of the Senate is different. So we may pass things at the House and they may get stuck at the Senate. So I encourage all community to make sure you're calling your senators, that you're visiting their offices, that you're writing, so that they can make the right decisions for our community. But again, on our end, we're doing everything within our power to pass the necessary bills to make sure we're protecting women's health rights and making healthcare affordable and accessible just overall.
This is a question from a French professor at Albright College.
Bonjour.
What is the biggest change that you have seen in Reading since you've been here for the past 16 or 17 years? We've lived in Reading as well since 2001, and we understand the narrative that is often out there about Reading. And so, what is the biggest change that you've seen?
Wow, that's a heavy question, right? Because there's been a lot of changes, especially as a business owner from Penn Street, having watched the Reading Eagle building be built from scratch, and then they disappear. Having catered to CNA, and then they left to WIO. Having seen the Ivy Charter School have students walking and even coming to Mi Casa Su Casa, and then they're gone, but now we have College Town. So, right, we're always changing. I think it's all on how you look at it, right? I look at everything at potential, right? We have an opportunity to prosper. I think we just have to continue to learn how to connect the dots and rely on one another. And, you know, even serving on city council, you know, there's still some ARPA dollars that before I left, I'm like, make sure you're putting money towards small businesses, because they have been the lifeline of our local economy. And we still have a lot more work to do. And even at the state level, like, I know where I come from, so I want to make sure that whatever resources I can pour back in, I will do so. But there's pros and cons to all of the changes that I have seen. But we still stay hopeful. So please don't move. Did you move already? No. Yeah, come back, come back. Remember, we are as strong as our weakest link. And we need everyone to come. It's like all hands on deck. Come visit. We have such great eateries in downtown Reading, or in the city of Reading overall. There's some great shops and great people behind those shops who are running those shops. So just, you know, live on the edge a little bit.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. Any more? Dave Carroll?
Johanny, what's your view of the immigration situation in this country?
Ooh, that's a heavy one, right? Being from immigrant parents, but they came in the legitimate way. So a couple of things, you know, from my lens, just from a community person, and then I'll go to legislative. I find that there are a lot of undocumented people that have tax ID numbers. So they're figuring out how to work and pay taxes. And what I don't comprehend is that the government takes their payments, but does nothing to help them become documented. So, but immigration is a federal, you know, that's a federal responsibility. So at the state level, there isn't much that I can do per se, but just yesterday we met with a group from York called CASA, and I know that Representative Burgos, who was the first Dominican American to be elected to the House, they are working on a bill that we can do at the state level, which is to provide driver's license. Obviously, you have to go through permits, you have to take your driver's, you have to go through the process, but to grant at least driver's license to folks who are not documented. So that's something that's been in the works. You know, I'd like to hear folks' input on that, but listening to some people who are undocumented, who are working, you know, the opportunity to buy, they like the opportunity to buy a vehicle, to be able to drive to work, and to drive their kids to either school, the doctors, and so on. So that's, I know that bill has been spoken about in the past 4 years, I believe. So Representative Burgos is bringing it back.
Okay, I think with that, we're going to wrap it up. Johanny, I'd like to thank you for giving us your time today to talk about your experience and being our keynote speaker for International Women's Month. We're not going to let you go away empty-handed. We have a gift for you. So there is a craftsperson over at Nolde Forest who creates specialty pottery for us with our name on it, World Affairs Council of Greater Reading and Berks. So we'd like to give that, we'd like to give that to you. Thank you. Thank you.